For decades, one small island has stood at the center of one of the world's most dangerous geopolitical tensions. An island with its own government, its own military, its own identity. And yet, just across a narrow stretch of water, a global superpower insists that this island does not truly exist as a separate country.
我们愿意为和平统一创造广阔空间。
This is the story of Taiwan and China. A conflict that hasn't turned into war yet, but one that could reshape the entire world if it ever does. To understand the tension today, you have to go back in time, back to the aftermath of a brutal civil war in China. In 1949, after years of fighting, the Communist Party took control of mainland China. The defeated nationalist government fled to Taiwan, taking with them soldiers, leaders, and millions of civilians. From that moment on, two governments emerged. One on the mainland, claiming to represent all of China, and one on Taiwan, claiming the exact same thing. For years, both sides insisted they were the legitimate rulers of China. But over time, reality shifted. The government in Beijing grew into a global superpower. Taiwan, meanwhile, evolved into something very different. A separate system, a separate identity, a separate future. Today, Taiwan is not what many people imagine. It is not a struggling territory or a disputed war zone. It is a thriving democracy. It holds regular elections. Its citizens vote freely. Its media operates without the strict controls seen across the mainland. In many ways, Taiwan functions like a fully independent country. It has its own passport, its own military, its own economy, and its own sense of national identity. Ask many people living there, and they will tell you they see themselves as Taiwanese, not Chinese. And that difference matters because it directly clashes with how China views the island. For China, Taiwan is not a separate country. It is a part of its territory, a province that must eventually return to the mainland. This position is not negotiable. It is deeply tied to history, national pride, and political legitimacy. From Beijing's perspective, allowing Taiwan to formally separate would set a dangerous precedent. It could encourage other regions to push for independence. It could weaken central authority, and it could challenge the image of national unity that China has worked hard to maintain. So instead, China has made its position clear. Reunification is not a question of if, it is a question of when. And if peaceful methods fail, force remains an option. For years, the situation has been held together by a fragile balance. Taiwan does not officially declare independence. China does not launch an invasion. And the rest of the world carefully navigates between the two. Most countries do not formally recognize Taiwan as an independent state. At the same time, many maintain strong economic and informal political ties with the island. This arrangement allows everyone to avoid a direct confrontation, but it also creates constant tension because the underlying disagreement has never been resolved. It has only been managed. One of the most important factors in this situation is the involvement of the United States. The US does not officially recognize Taiwan as a country, but it does support Taiwan in critical ways. It sells defensive weapons, it helps Taiwan maintain its ability to resist a potential attack, and it signals, carefully but consistently, that any attempt to take Taiwan by force would have serious consequences. However, this support comes with ambiguity. The US has never clearly stated whether it would directly intervene in a war. This uncertainty is intentional. It is designed to discourage both sides from making drastic moves. to prevent Taiwan from declaring independence and to prevent China from launching an invasion. But ambiguity is not stability. It is a balancing act. And like all balancing acts, it can fail. In recent years, the tension has intensified. China has increased its military presence around Taiwan. Fighter jets regularly enter Taiwan's air defense zone. Naval ships operate closer to the island. Large-scale military drills simulate blockades and invasion scenarios. These actions are not random. They serve multiple purposes. They send a message to Taiwan. They test military readiness, and they demonstrate power to the rest of the world. For Taiwan, this creates constant pressure, a reminder that the threat is not theoretical. It is real, and it is getting closer. Taiwan has not remained passive. It has strengthened its military, invested in defensive systems, and focused on strategies designed to make any invasion extremely costly. The idea is not necessarily to defeat a much larger military outright, but to make the price of attack so high that it becomes unattractive. At the same time, Taiwan continues to build international partnerships, expanding trade, strengthening diplomatic ties where possible, and increasing its global visibility. Because in this situation, isolation is vulnerability, and visibility can act as a form of protection. This conflict is not just about territory. It is about global impact. Taiwan plays a critical role in the world economy, especially in the production of semiconductors. These tiny components power everything from smartphones to cars to advanced military systems. If Taiwan's supply were disrupted, the effects would be felt everywhere. Production lines would stall, technology industries would slow down, and economies across the globe would face serious consequences. This makes Taiwan strategically important far beyond its size. It is not just an island. It is a critical link in the modern world. So, what happens if this tension escalates? A conflict over Taiwan would not be small. It would not be contained, and it would not be simple. Any military action could quickly involve multiple countries, regional allies, global powers, and complex defense agreements. The result could be a large-scale confrontation with global consequences. Trade routes could be disrupted, financial markets could react sharply, and supply chains could break down. But perhaps the biggest risk is miscalculation. Not a planned war, but an accident, a misunderstanding, a situation that spirals out of control. Because when tensions are high, even small incidents can become major crises. Despite all the risks, both sides are cautious. China understands the cost of war. Taiwan understands the stakes of independence. And the international community understands the consequences of escalation. So for now, the situation continues. Not resolved, not stable, but managed. A constant state of tension without open conflict. However, this balance depends on restraint, on careful decisions, and on avoiding actions that could shift the status quo too far in either direction. At its core, this conflict is not just political or military. It is deeply human. It is about identity, about how people see themselves, and who gets to decide that. In Taiwan, a growing number of people identify primarily as Taiwanese, not as part of a larger Chinese identity. This shift is significant because it shapes public opinion, it influences elections, and it affects the direction of the island's future. For China, this trend is concerning because it moves Taiwan further away from the idea of reunification and makes a peaceful resolution more difficult. So, where does this all lead? There are several possible paths. The current situation could continue. Tension without conflict. A long-term standoff. China could increase pressure gradually, using economic and military tools to push Taiwan closer. Or, in a more extreme scenario, force could be used, an attempt to take control by military means. But none of these outcomes are guaranteed, because the situation is constantly evolving, influenced by politics, by global events, and by decisions made on all sides. For now, Taiwan remains self-governing. China remains determined, and the world watches closely. Not because war is inevitable, but because the stakes are so high. This is not just a regional issue. It is a global one. A situation where history, identity, power, and economics all collide. And where one decision, one miscalculation, could change everything. The question is not just what will happen, it is when, and how the world will respond when it does.